Hello everyone, my name is Ada Yang Shelley Ching. The other author, Shelley Ching, is my advisor who helps me a lot in the process of this paper. Today I'm going to talk about the topic conceptual metaphor awareness on English phrasal verbs teaching and learning for adolescents in Taiwan. We're from National Cheng Kung University, Taiwan. Okay, first, I'm talking about the motivation. Why do we research vocabulary teaching and learning? Because vocabulary teaching is a notorious area that many language learners suffers, especially phrasal verbs. Phrasal verbs are defined here as a structure that combines a verb and invariable particle that function as a single unit, both lexically and syntactically. For language learners, phrasal verbs are so challenging. They think phrasal verbs are dead metaphors with arbitrary and unrelated system. Thus, they resort to only heart and memorization to learn those phrasal verbs. However, from many literatures, we found if one applies a conceptual metaphor, that is CM here, to this field, one can derive insightful and meaningful learning. For example, the following are CM researchers who conduct the empirical teaching experiments with very meaningful findings. However, they all recruit adult learners. They think adult learners are cognitively mature and their language proficiency is intermediate to high, so those participants have enough ability of language manipulation. On the contrary, in this paper, we employ junior high school students with basic English proficiency to evaluate whether or not applying CMA conceptual metaphor awareness approach into phrasal verb will aid their learning or not. Here comes to the methodology part. First I'm going to talk about the polysemy and the family resemblance. These two are viewed as the building blocks for conceptual metaphors. A polysemy word is defined here, a word that has multiple senses related in the same phonological structure, so the sound is the same. For example, Hsieh 1990 analyzed the related sense of up. Up. The meaning of up can be in an upward direction, increasing, growing, or improving. So these meanings combines together in called a family resemblance, and the typical member in this family resemblance is called prototype. So take up for example. The prototype is in an upward direction, and based on this notion, it's extended to refer to other meanings such as increasing, growing, or improving. So meanings are shifted from the prototype to peripheral ones, and this is the network called family resemblance. This concept is very important for phrasal verb teaching and learning because it accounts for the related senses of up, like blow up. Up means increasing here, bring up, growing, cheer up, growing, and business is looking up, implies improving. These meanings of phrasal verb can be taught at one time with the prototype and the family resemblance, so as to make English phrasal verbs learn learning more efficiently. And here comes to a conceptual metaphor. It's defined by Lakoff 1987 as the relationship between A and B is motivated. Okay, the two lexicon, okay, A and B is motivated just in case there is an independently existing link L, such that A, L, B fit together. That is, L makes sense of the relationship between A and B. So conceptual metaphor bring two domains of knowledge into correspondence. The logic of the source domain is mapped onto the target domain, that is the source domain. And a source domain is typically applied to provide understanding about the target domain. Okay, for example, Covasis 1986 has shown English contains numerous expressions to describe anger, and those meanings are motivated by conceptual metaphors. For example, the conceptual metaphor is anger as a half fluid in a container. So because of this, conceptual metaphor will give rise to some expressions such as anger well up inside me, I'm boiling with anger, simmered down, and he blew up at me. These expressions are understood because we have the conceptual metaphor, that is, anger as a half fluid in a container. So these expressions can be learned in an organized group at one time, so make the learning easier. Okay. Here comes to the research questions. There are 3 research questions. First one, whether teenagers with basic foreign language proficiency will benefit from conceptual metaphor awareness method on learning English phrasal verbs, whether or not. Okay. And second, does the experimental group outperform the control group in vocabulary retention? Experiment group means guided by conceptual metaphor awareness method, and the control group is guided by traditional teaching. And later on, I will explain the difference. And the third, does the experimental group have better performance than the control group while interpreting unfamiliar phrasal verbs? Participants that we recruited here are 30 8th grade junior high school students in Tainan City, Taiwan. All of them are at the age of 13 or 14 and whose language proficiency is basic. They are divided into 2 groups, namely control group and experimental group, and each with 15 students. Let's look at the experimental groups process and design. Okay. Because of the number of English phrasal verbs is quite large, and we decide to cope with off and out in this study. So all the participants will be taught 12 phrasal verbs with off and up. However, the teaching procedure are different for these 2 groups. For control group, the researcher, wrote down 12 sentences with phrasal verbs and their Chinese translations. You can see Appendix 1, get more information. Learners were instructed to memorize these phrasal verbs. They have to memorize the English phrasal verbs and their Chinese equivalents. For experimental group, the researcher applied conceptual metaphor awareness to explain the meaning of these 12 phrasal verbs. You can look at for conceptual metaphor awareness, for example, the researcher will teach participants the concept of being finished or complete. It's commonly understood in terms of the concept up. Then it leads to orientational metaphor, like a conceptual metaphor is complexion is up, such as in break up, make up, or eat up. Another conceptual metaphor, stop, is up, such as give up. So they can learn those phrasal verbs together in an organized way.